Hey guys, what's up? I'm Erin and welcome back to the channel. When it comes to your money, you likely have a few questions like how much of a house can I afford? Or how much of a car can I afford? Or even how much should I be spending on food on a regular basis? Or things like how much should I be putting towards savings and investments? And how long will it take my money to double? And all of these questions can be answered by using financial rules of thumb. And the fact of the matter is there are tons of different rules of thumb out there, literally dozens upon dozens of them. And it can really make your finances feel like one big math equation. But I promise you, finance is way simpler than that. But it is good to know some of these general rules of thumb because it can help you to know that you're on the right path. And since it's impossible to touch on every single rule of thumb out there in one video, we'll cover some of them in this video. We'll touch on the biggies, 7 numbers you need to know if you want to take control of your finances. First and foremost, let's tackle housing. Ideally, your housing and housing-related expenses would not exceed 30% of your income. Keep in mind here when we talk about your income, we're talking about gross income. So that is your income prior to any taxes or deductions. And keep in mind that this 30% figure is going to include your housing-related expenses. So think taxes, insurance, utilities, even your internet. So you want to keep your housing expenses as well as housing-related expenses to 30% or less of your household income. The good news is that this 30% figure can work for people who are buying a home or for people who are renting a place. It simply refers to your housing-related expenses. So if you're a renter, make sure your rent fits into this category. If you're a home buyer, make sure your mortgage fits into this category. The whole goal of keeping your housing at what seems to be a lower percentage of your income is to free up your money to be used elsewhere, whether that's for a vacation, for transportation, for savings, for investments, so you have money left over to enjoy today. And I fully understand that this can be a really hard metric to hit, especially in today's real estate economy, because homes are still near record high prices and mortgages are still sitting around 7%. Of course, the median home price does vary. For instance, the median home price of a home in Alabama is about $270,000, whereas the median home price in Hawaii is north of $700,000. So there's a huge difference here. But nationwide, median home price as of 2024 is about $380,000. And if we use that figure, along with the present mortgage rate, you would likely need a household income of over $100,000 to be able to afford a home in today's market and keep all housing expenses at 30% or lower. And being that a 6-figure income does put you in the top 62% of American earning households, it can signify that this is a bit of a stretch. But keep in mind that difficult does not mean impossible. Housing does get exponentially more affordable when you have multiple income earners in the household. So maybe it's best to live with your significant other, or maybe it's best to get a roommate, or in some situations, maybe it's multiple roommates. This may mean if you're in the market to purchase a home but haven't purchased yet, you might have to do some side work or some overtime to help boost your down payment to make sure when you get that home that a payment still fits within this ratio. It's not easy, but it is doable, and it might be necessary if homeownership is your dream. Truly, one of the worst things you can do is to buy a home that far exceeds your budget. Then you end up pumping such a great percentage of your income into your home that you're really left with nothing left over at the end of the month. This is where you end up house rich and cash poor. You have no money left over to enjoy life, and that's a really bad situation to be in. So this is a really important ratio to hit. It may not be easy, but this is an important one to get right. Total debt is going to include all of your debts, including your mortgage, your credit card balances, your auto loans, or any personal loans you may have. And ideally, in this situation, you want to keep all debt payments to less than 36% of your gross income. Again, the whole idea of keeping your debt burden or your debt repayments on the lower end of the spectrum is to actually create breathing room in your budget so you actually have money left over to do something fun, because you don't want to take your entire paycheck and dedicate that to paying back debt or paying off bills. I really love the idea of a debt-free life. I mean, who doesn't want to be in a position where they don't owe anyone anything? The only debt that I'm really okay with is mortgage debt. Outside of that, I don't really like any other debt type. And that's not to say that I really like a mortgage, but like I said, I'm okay with a mortgage. But if you have other debt types, think like student loans, auto loans, or any other personal loans, I truly think it's best to just get them paid off as quickly as possible. Once you get your debts paid off, it frees up so much of your money to put towards investments or take a vacation or, quite frankly, just do whatever you want with. As far as credit cards, I'm fine with using them so long as you use them correctly, which means paid off in full and on time every single month. But keep in mind, if you do use a credit card, payments to those credit cards, even if you do it correctly and pay them off in full every single month, count as total debt repayments for the month. So it's still important to keep your spending in line with your income. And as an added bonus, when it comes to credit usage, you want to keep your credit usage as low as possible. This helps to boost your credit score. Ideally, you want to keep your credit usage to less than 30% of your available credit. I like a target savings goal of 20%, broken down as 15% to long-term savings and 5% to short-term goals. Now, while I believe 20% is a great goal to hit, you absolutely do not have to start at this point. The reality is that so many people have a low or no savings rate. What I think is most important is simply getting started. Getting started as soon as you possibly can with whatever you can, even if that's starting with just 1% of your income. Quite frankly, if you were saving nothing before, 1% is a step in the right direction. Start off by slowly building that habit, increase the percentage that you're saving over time, working your way up to 20%, split between 15% going towards long-term goals and 5% going to those short-term goals. Now, of course, if you want to be a super saver and have an aggressive savings rate that exceeds this 20%, go for it. More power to you. But I do think 20% or 15% is a truly realistic range for most people. And I think most people would be in a good position if they hit this. And it's important to remember that not everyone wants to be a super saver. A natural offshoot from the previous one is your emergency fund. And here you should aim to have a target of 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Again, I want to emphasize this is to cover your expenses, and the expenses that I like to include are simply the essential ones. The whole point of the emergency fund is to cover you in an emergency situation, like say you lose your job and you need to keep your heat or your lights on. Your emergency fund is intended to carry you through the tough times until you get back on your feet. Now, whether 3 or 6 months worth of expenses or some number in between there is better for your situation depends on your personal situation. Say you're a single earning income household. Well, maybe in that situation, you'd feel better with a bit of a bigger buffer. Maybe 6 months worth of expenses is better. If you're in a dual income earning household, maybe you can be closer to 3 months because it's unlikely that both you and your significant other would lose your jobs at the same time. Not impossible, but more unlikely. Or maybe you know you're in a field that if you were to lose your job, you could quickly find another position. Maybe you can go back down to 3 months worth of expenses. Again, it all depends on your situation. The rule of 72 is a simple estimation of how much time it will take for your investments to double. You simply take 72 divided by your expected rate of return, and the answer will be the number of years for your money to double at that rate of return. So if you expect a 10% rate of return, you can expect that your investments would double every 7.2 years. If you expect an 8% rate of return, you can expect your investments would double every 9 years. If you expect a 6% rate of return, you can expect that your investments would double every 12 years or so. Now, of course, this rule of thumb isn't perfect, and it doesn't factor in any contributions you make to your investments along the way. So if you're actively contributing to your investments, chances are you're actually going to double your investments at a quicker rate than this formula would suggest. But this is a fun one to play around with. When it comes to calculating financial freedom, this is really going to come down to your personal situation. As a general guidepost, a lot of people follow the 4% rule, or said another way, perhaps you reached financial freedom when you have saved 25 times your annual expenses. Now, the 4% rule can be used as a general guide. It is by no means a perfect measure. I've done plenty of videos on the rule of 4% itself that I will link above and down below if you're interested in a more detailed perspective on that. Now, when it comes to figuring out what your financial freedom number is, it's worth actually sitting down and putting some thought into this and making it tailored to your personal circumstance. But if you are interested in simply a general guideline, you can use the rule of 25 times your annual expenses, and that's a good place to start. Your net worth is simply everything you own minus everything you owe. There isn't a specific net worth that everyone should be aiming for. Rather, it's going to be a personal goal, but you should notice a trend that your net worth should be increasing over time. I'm a firm believer in running your net worth in 2 different ways. If you're a homeowner, I recommend running it including your home and then also running it excluding your home. Your home is an asset, and it's an asset that tends to increase in value over time, and it does provide you a place to live with fairly fixed housing costs over time. I'm not trying to discredit any of that, but I do think it can be dangerous if your home becomes a disproportionately large portion of your net worth. According to a study from the Financial Samurai, the typical American has over 70% of their net worth in their primary residence. You have to build wealth outside your home because this is wealth you can truly work with. Think investments that you can use to provide yourself with a source of income. So in my opinion, I think it's better to keep your home or your primary residence at a target of no more than 35% of your net worth. That way you can ensure that you are building wealth outside of your home. So I really like the idea of running two different net worth numbers, one that includes your primary residence and one that excludes it. This will kind of force you to focus on your net worth that's outside of your home and not just rely on your home appreciating in value to increase your net worth. So there's lots of different rules of thumb out there that you can use when it comes to your finances. You can apply it to spending, saving, investing, your net worth, you name it. Are there any general rules of thumb you like to follow? Leave your thoughts in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I'll see you soon. Bye.